I am sure a handful of you have had the dreaded experience known as sleep paralysis. I know I have, and boy is it never fun. One time I was told by a professional that sleep paralysis is so odd because it isn't really ever consistent. The next time it happens could be the last time it ever happens to you. Or you could be cursed to live through hell for the next 5 nights. I imagine situations change if you are someone who likes to force a lucid dream, considering a side effect of that is accidentally putting yourself into sleep paralysis. Good job, buddy. But why am I talking about sleep paralysis, you may ask? Well, this really creepy duo series of videos came across my feed, Trespassing and Trespassing II, and when I tell you, I got pretty freaked out. Now I know I say that for a lot of things here, but what I have for you all today gave me a lot of Skinamarink vibes. And if you have been a fan of the channel for a while now, you know how badly that movie scared me. Needless to say, I will be watching this series with one earpiece hanging off. However, another thing I noticed within the video is that it really seemed like this will have something to do with sleep paralysis, which I feel is rarely depicted accurately, unless I'm just looking in the wrong places. But if you stick around to the end of this video, I'll be sharing probably one of the worst sleep paralysis experiences I have ever had the displeasure of having. But as always, be sure to check out the original series before jumping on over here to brave the nightmares as a group. But enough yapping, it's time to get into our protective gear, cozy edition, and go to sleep knowing that horrors will await us. But before I let you get too far, there's just one more piece of gear you'll probably need, and that is the sponsor of today's video, Manta Sleep. Manta Sleep makes high-quality sleep masks to fit all your resting needs. These masks come with adjustable eye cups to alleviate pressure and to ensure that no light is making its way through. 100% blackout. I know someone who could really use this. The gang over at Manta Sleep were kind enough to send me over the Manta Sound Mask, which comes with these Bluetooth headphones on the side. No need for barbaric methods of listening to your podcasts, background noise, or even music when it's time for bed. And the battery life is over 20 hours, so unless you sleep for that long, this will last you the whole night. But if that's not important to you, there's plenty of other options like the weighted mask, steam mask, cool mask, and the unbeatable original, the Manta Sleep Mask. Like I said before, I toss and turn like a crazy person all throughout the night, and the fact that this mask does not fall off is truly mind-boggling. Also going on from tomorrow, May 26th to June 8th, Manta Sleep has the Beat the Light offer, where you get 15% off if you spend $99 and 20% off if you spend $149. Better yet, the first 500 customers to shop during the sale receive a Founder's Favorite Sleep Accessory Kit for the best price. Free! I'll have a link down in the description if you want to get your very own Manta Sleep Mask, and be sure to use the code 4PLUS at checkout to get 10% off your order. Once again, a huge thank you to Manta Sleep for sponsoring today's video. But anyways, now you can pass through. Trespassing. The first thing we see in this tape is a recording labeled Trespassing, and it's easy to miss, but right before our scene transitions, we can see some more text appear. All it says is, "Something awful is in my house." We slowly fade into this scene where it looks like we are in the POV of someone laying in their room. We end up getting another look at the room from a different angle before we are taken to what looks to be either the bedroom door or closet door. And when I tell you, I nearly had a heart attack. We cut to black and are taken back to that first frame. Except out from the side, our little friend decides to visit, and ends up speaking to us. We have captions that tell us what he is saying, but it sounds like a deep, garbled mess. If I ever saw something like this in any of my sleep paralysis experiences, you would never catch me going to sleep again. The text at the bottom ends up reading, "You're in those conditions again," before our screen ends up glitching out entirely and our figure moves off frame. The text, "You're in those conditions again," then flashes a bunch of times on screen. This is leading me to believe that our main character here is likely suffering from some type of life event that is causing a lot of stress. And stress leads to bad sleep, and sometimes bad sleep can lead to sleep paralysis. So whatever conditions our character has found themselves having has definitely had this before. To what extent, however, who knows? We end up arriving at our next segment, which has us looking down this hallway as a camera frequently takes photos, lighting up the scene. This happens a number of times before we briefly see the door to the left move a bit. Once that happens, however, all hell breaks loose. The screen begins to glitch, and text appears at the bottom that just says, "See me." We end up cutting to the super dark footage, but you can kinda make out a shadowy figure lurking in the grain. But then we get our first full look at whatever this nightmare creature is. I am curious what the mini frame of flowers is supposed to mean. Those are flowers, right? Again, we see the text, those same conditions. Interestingly enough, that frame sort of acted like a sensor to hide the creature's face. Maybe our character tried to fight his nightmare with forced positive mental imagery. Our next segment kind of fuels this theory. We end up looking at many more fields of flowers. Text at the bottom appears that says refused, 2 weeks until my appointment. What am I not understanding? This phrase then gets flashed a couple times. 2 weeks until my appointment, and over 2 terabytes of footage. My headaches aren't getting better, and now I'm starting to see things in my room. We end up getting this block of text right here, but I, for the life of me, could not read it. Life is so beautiful. Life was so beautiful. No longer safe. Something awful. Something awful is in my house. We end up cutting to black, and again another green field appears on screen. But this time, the flashing photos have returned, with text reassuring each time that nothing is there. At one point, no photo gets taken, and the text says, try again. But then the photos continue on. However, to be expected, our friend decides to make an appearance. Even our text saying nothing is there has vanished. I mean, it'd be lying at that point. Once the creature is gone, the photos start to take more rapidly, showing our character is likely doing this himself, and it's not on some automated system. No wonder he has 2 terabytes of footage. The flashing ends up taking a pause, and sure enough, our friend shows up for his final scene. It almost looks like either the It almost looks like either the creature or our character then picks up the camera and heads for one of the doors, to which all we get is text that says outside, before the tape ends. This was definitely harrowing, to say the least so far. I really liked that one flower segment because it really seemed like we were inside someone's mind, seeing as they try to visualize a peaceful scene and trying to calm themselves by reminding them their appointment is soon, which I imagine has to relate to the situation at hand. The description of this video actually gives us some more insight into that situation. Doctor's note, July 1st, 2010. Patient should continue taking his medication until our next appointment in 2 weeks. Recommendations. Patient should record with a camera provided when the hallucinations start again. We will review the footage next time to reassure them that the hallucinations are not real. Dr. June Bennett. I'm glad that as of this moment, it isn't clear if the creature is real or not. This very well could just be a hallucination or a sleep paralysis episode. But if that creature turns out to be real, I'd like to see Dr. June Bennett explain how that is. Trespassing II. We open up on our second tape witnessing the exact same thing we saw at the end of tape 1, with our giant creature seemingly attacking our character, and potentially killing him. And I'm not too sure if I'm right here, but either our character didn't die and got away, hence the filming, or the creature has picked up the camera and has decided to film his own journey. We get the text once again that just says outside, but we quickly flash to this white connecting screen. It appears that our footage gets loaded, but we then see the text out of range bouncing around. Oh, son of a bitch. However, right when it looks like the text is going to hit the corner, we are tricked and met with something much scarier and louder instead. This scene goes on for a bit, but our creature that we see looks a little different than the one we saw before. Unless it can shapeshift, this one's neck is easily a lot more snake-like than that of the previous humanoid monster. We also consistently get the text out of bounds once again. I'm curious as to what this is supposed to mean. What exactly is out of bounds? We quickly end up cutting to our next scene, which just has us looking at an honestly peaceful night sky, which I doubt is going to last for long. However, we end up cutting to inside this house, and it looks like one of the doors is open. Is this the same house we were in before, owned by our character? We end up holding on to this shot for a little bit until background noises oddly go silent, and we get another quick visit. Once again, we are then brought to this footage segment where we can see we are out of bounds again, and I'm not really sure what it is I'm looking at here. It almost looks like our character or monster potentially looking up at the stars, or this is some visualization of a nightmare happening in real time. However, this segment doesn't last long as we end up cutting to found footage format, following someone as they check their closet. I imagine this has to be our same character. We end up climbing into bed, but after a bit, we once again return to that strange footage. Except this time, even our time at the top is messed up. But as to be expected, another visitor then arrives. As a matter of fact, we get 2 visitors. I'm going to take a guess right now and say that whenever we are seeing grainy footage with the white border, we are in a nightmare, and anything outside of that is reality. But once we cut to the segment with the tall, shadowy figure, I believe we have entered paralysis. Text like "it can't see you if you keep your eyes closed" and "don't move," when it likely should say "can't move." But now this terrifying monster is under our bed, proven by the text. Check under your bed. It's hiding there. Hell no. Okay, I guess we're doing it. We hang ourselves over and peek under the bed, and sure enough, we can see those 2 white eyes in the dark. The text just repeats, "right there, right there. Turn it on." And for some odd reason, we decide to turn our light on. We return to the middle of the bed, but this creature is not letting up. And I gotta say, coming from someone who has had a plethora of sleep paralysis experiences, this is one of my worst fears come to life. The last thing we end up seeing on this tape is just this haunting face in the dark, before we cut to black. Now that was certainly something. I gotta say, I feel like it has taken a lot longer than expected for analog horror to go into the realm of sleep paralysis, at least to this extent. I honestly think the majority of what we witnessed within these 2 tapes were hallucinations/nightmares. You can't deny the ending of our last tape was a straight up sleep paralysis episode displayed on screen. The repeated text begging to move. And something I personally related to was the idea that whatever is with you can't see you if you keep your eyes closed. Whenever I realize I am experiencing sleep paralysis, you bet your ass my eyes stay as shut as can be, because I am not taking any chances with what I may see. There seemed to be a little bit of a hint at the end of the first tape that our creature may in fact be real, considering the photos being taken literally showed it. So I suppose it's still possible that there is something larger at play tormenting our character. But I think as of this moment, a lot of it is in his head. I found it fascinating that we got to see a visualization of someone who goes to bed, has nightmares, and sometimes those nightmares bleed into the waking life through either paralysis or hallucinations. I like that this didn't seem to try and be some grand big story with multiple characters and monsters, but just a mini-series about a character struggling with sleep disorders and how detrimental that can be if left unchecked, making this probably one of the more frightening bundle of horror videos I have covered so far. It just hits a little too close to home. It managed to capture the intensity of being unable to move, trapped inside of your own sleeping body very well. For anyone who has had the pleasure to never experience sleep paralysis, consider yourself lucky. But if I remember correctly, I said that I would tell my own personal sleep paralysis tale at the end here for all of you that stuck around. A little bit of context, however, to how my sleep paralysis experiences usually feel like. For me, it feels like waking up from a dream, and then once I go to move, I just can't. It feels like the gravity of the Earth has been dialed up to max. However, and this may sound odd, it feels like I can make slight movements, even though in reality, I don't think I'm moving at all. So it almost feels like an out-of-body experience where my body is literally trapped, but it still feels like I'm able to sometimes at least roll around in bed. It's a huge struggle to move an inch, but it feels like I'm doing it. The best way to describe it is it feels like the closest to astral projecting as someone could get, if you believe in that sort of stuff. Initially, I believed I may have been sleepwalking, since there were times where it felt like I was walking, barely, around my house, fully awake, except I wasn't. But with all that out of the way, let's get into this horrifying bit. So one night, I was out house sitting, and sure enough, in the middle of the night, I woke up, unable to move. Once this was figured out, the eyes slammed shut and stayed shut. And usually, I just try to make it to where my thoughts are as loud as possible as to drown out any possible auditory hallucinations I'd rather not hear. But that didn't work this time, as from what it sounded like, something just entered the room and shut the door. And then I heard the bone-crunching sounds as whatever this creature was crouched down to the floor and crawled as fast as possible over to the side of the bed I was sleeping on. Thankfully, the immense panic that ensued afterwards was enough to bring me out of it, but I would be lying if I said getting any sleep after that was definitely tough. Last experience would have probably been a couple weeks ago, but best case scenario is just a period of being unable to move that I can break out of in about 45 seconds. However, worst case scenario is it feels like hours and nothing is working. But on that lovely note, I hope you all enjoyed these duo of videos as much as I did. The channel Black MES is full of all kinds of horror content. The Trespassing duology is just the tip of the iceberg, so I recommend you check out some more of their works. I know this video is a little on the shorter end, but as always, I appreciate all of you who stuck around to the end. As always, be sure to keep leaving me recommendations down below, whether it be in the YouTube comments or the community Discord, where just like our long-limbed creature, I'm under all your beds. But if you'll excuse me, it's about my bedtime and me and the Hat Man have a scheduled meeting.